It's all happening. Hello, Facebook. Brie Sodano here, coming to you live today for Break the Class Ceilings Masterclass. And I am so freaking pumped. I am over the moon about this. So we'll give everybody a moment to hop on. So Facebook, just so you know, I'm also on the Instagram, so I may be taking questions from either place. Super excited to be here today. So hello, Colleen. Hello, Wendy. All right. And as you are hopping on, oh, look at, there's so many people. As you are hopping on, please say hello. Let me know that you're here. If this is your first time ever catching me live, please go ahead and say hello in the comments, because it's so that way I can welcome you to the community. It always feels so nice to know that, I don't know, I come live and it feels good when people engage. Plus, today's activities, we're going to do a lot of Q&A because part of the benefit that I want you to get is starting to clean out some of your own stuff. Oh, hello, Kathy. Hello, Renata. I'm so happy. So happy. All right. So listen, Facebook, if you have not already registered for the masterclass today, obviously you can watch it. It's up here. It's live. But there are worksheets that you can go click the link that's in the comments right now, and you will get the worksheets delivered to your email box. And I'll tell you, the worksheets are going to be super useful for you. All right. So so again, please say hi as you're coming on. If this is your first time ever catching me live, please say hello. If you're somebody who watches live all the time, please say hello. And if you take a lot of benefit out of this, please share this. Part of the mission of Sheep to Shark is transforming the national conversation around money. And that means the more that you share, the more that you tag a friend, the more that you send it to their inbox, the further that message goes. And I'm just super grateful. All right. So we talked about the registration. All right. So today also, so I'm doing this webinar, and we will be talking about Money Mindset Bootcamp, which is the live coaching program that I have to offer to you all. I want you to know, these master classes I do for you, you should derive a tremendous benefit. And then if you wanted to work with me, we'll talk about Money Mindset Bootcamp during the course of this program. But I want you to know that you should really take a tremendous benefit, whether or not you decide to keep, whether or not you decide that you want to be in Money Mindset Bootcamp. But obviously you do, because it's fucking incredible. All right, so let's go ahead. Are you guys ready? Let me know. Oh, Wendy, it's your first time live. Welcome. All right, so are you guys ready? Give me a yes or some hearts and some likes, and let me know if you're ready to get started. There's like a 12 or 15 second delay, which is always slightly awkward because then somebody's got to hit the buttons. All right. So I'm just going to assume that you're ready, and I'll go ahead and get started. Are you ready? All right. All right. So what I want to start our discussion with is really, like, when I say class ceilings, what does that even mean? Because it's not, I made it up. So class ceilings are the framework that's around classes, like your class, and basically, like, part of your financial identity is the way that you would categorize yourself as class, right? And in America, we have mobile class systems. You could start out really poor and end up really wealthy. You could start out really wealthy and end up really poor. You're allowed to move classes. But what I find is that there are very specific issues, very specific mindsets, very specific emotional patterning, very specific mental patterning that happens in different classes. And so the reason that I'm doing this is I've worked with many people over the years. And one of the things that I find is that people who grew up poor or lower middle class will then go on to earn at levels that could make them upper middle class or wealthy, but they still are stuck in poverty or lower middle class patterns. And what I've been dubbing that is class ceilings, because it's an internal game. You have to break free of everything that goes along with your financial identity as regards to class. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And so I'm hoping that this opens your mind, changes your perceptions, and really helps you to see just all the different layers of what constructs your identity, your financial identity, and then the outcomes that go with that. So there's 4 different realms of reality, or what it takes to create reality. So I call the top realm the realm of truths. This is the realm of judgments. This is where your identities are. This is, if you could imagine like in your mind, a glass maze, these invisible walls of what's normal to you, what's true for you, things that most of the time, the truths that are in this realm are backed by evidence. Your life could show you evidence of this. These are the invisible rules that we live in. You'll feel the invisible rules, like like the patriarchy is mostly made up of invisible rules. It's invisible expectations. It's invisible limitations, right? The reason why they call the glass ceiling is because you can't exactly see it, but it's there. And so what we're going to talk about today is the class ceilings, right? So the realm of truths. Now, so for most of us, depending on how you grew up, that was what formed those invisible walls. So if you grew up lower middle class, what you saw being normal in your life is going to be incredibly different than if you grew up in a more privileged background, right? And everybody's got their own sets of challenges. But it's basically how open your mind is, right? So if you have invisible rules that are super, super tight, you're going to find that your life is going to be harder. And the thing about truths, the thing about the invisible rules is your brain's plastic. It can learn. These things are not set in stone. You just decide to change them. And that's what we do in Money Mindset Bootcamp. All right. So that's the first round. So the invisible rules then have a very big impact on where your thoughts can go. So your mental, so like your thoughts. So truths are going to live in your subconscious. They're going to be deep-seated beliefs of what's normal, what's right, what's wrong. They're going to be constructed over your lifetime. Your thoughts are more of your conscious mind. And so the way that those two have a relationship is that your conscious thoughts are going to be governed by the invisible rules. So if you have a rule that says you have to work hard to make money, you might not see the solution that's right on the other side of that if that invisible rule is in the way. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. You let me know in the comments if this has ever happened to you. Have you ever had a situation in your life where you were sitting across the table from a friend who was whining about something, and you're listening and you're like, I propose a solution. Let's see. What if you tried option A? And they say, no, option A, it couldn't work. And then they tell you the reasons why it couldn't work. The invisible rules that they have could not just, it couldn't connect. And then you say, all right, skeptical, option B, could you do this? And they say, no, I couldn't do that. All these reasons. This is where in real life you can start to see how the thoughts, the perceptions, the availability of options, you can either see or not see because of the truths. That's the way that goes. Reality, you can be sitting in the exact same spot as somebody else. Well, like not in the exact same spot, but your butt could be right next to their butt. You could see an entirely different world than the person right next to you. It's the way that happens. So thoughts or truths, thoughts. Then we have our emotional realm. So emotions generally are going to give you a clue about something. we're gonna talk more about emotions in a minute. So just because I don't need to explain what an emotion is, or we're gonna talk about the relationship. Then we have the last part of our creation, the fourth creation realm is our actions. So our truths dictate what we believe is possible for us, right? There's other things that go on in there. This impacts our thoughts, the way that we're going to perceive solutions to problems, where we're going to get our ideas, their mental processes. Then we have our emotional being. And so here's the deal. Your emotions generally happen with the thought of actions. So for example, if you were going to take an action that wasn't congruent with your identity, very likely it will feel bad, or you won't be able to stick to it for long, right? Like a few weeks. So most of the time, what really limits us is our emotions. Like if I do this, then I will feel bad. I will feel guilt. I will feel ashamed. I will feel something. And those emotional arcs really, I mean, most of the time they keep us in line. So if I was going to go to Stop and Shop and steal a can of tuna fish, I probably wouldn't do that. Why? Because I would feel guilty about stealing. I would feel ashamed. And then the potential for the humiliation, embarrassment of getting caught stealing a can of tuna from Stop and Shop would prevent me from doing that, right? And so that's the way our emotions kind of keep us on certain paths. All right, so I wanted to explain that first. So if you have any questions about what I just explained with the truths, the thoughts, the emotions, and the actions, go ahead and put them in the comments right now, and I will answer them. And then I will just go ahead and start to get to the next part of this. So class, when we talk about class, it's part of your financial identity. There are other parts to your financial identity, like your family, your community, even like ethnicities have certain financial identities that go with them. But you will see that from my experience after working with as many people as I have, as I find class to be one of the stickiest, because class, there's so many more implications about what class is than just how much money you make. It's there's almost like a game that we play between like white collar, blue collar, working class, middle class, upper middle class, wealthy class. Like you can name it however you want, and you'll find that there are a lot of names. But what I realize is those things are super sticky in your financial identity, because it's not just personal; it's also who you are in context. So you're part of a group of people, and then it's the comparison, feeling less than those people, feeling like more fortunate, those other people. And so that class part of your identity is generally something that I find needs to be worked through, reframed, processed, to really expand financially. So this is some of the work that I do with clients in Money Mindset Bootcamp, and then even like Cash Confident and Limitless Wealth, my group coaching programs and my mastermind. This is some of the work that we do, because you have to really break down where those identity issues are, so that way you can start deciding for yourself that the identity I had around my financial life installed my first 10 years of life, actually I don't want anymore. Because your parents or whoever you lived with, basically what you saw them do with their money, or how they earned or how they spent, that's going to be part of what you think is just normal, what feels normal to you. It doesn't have a strong emotional charge. So this is the way that I'm going to explain it. So you're going to see your class is basically like what is available to you. So you'll see that if you grew up, lower middle class, basic needs, for example, may have been tough to meet. So I have clients who still to this day feel guilty about needing clothes, needing things, because where they grew up, basic needs weren't easy to cover. All the money went to basic needs, so having extra needs was a problem. So that's one example. Um, you know, if you grew up super wealthy, basic needs were more of an of course. Like, and then your needs might have been travel or education, and we can start to see the difference. All right, let's just see. Somebody has a comment. I will read it. It can be tough if you grew up in one class and are an adult in a different class. It goes both ways, whether or not it's an increase or an increase or decrease from past experiences. Oh, yeah, either way. So let's say you grew up super wealthy and now in your adulthood, not so much. There can be a ton of guilt and a ton of shame and a lot of feelings of unacceptance or whatever around that. Or the other way around. Or the other way around. It's all of it. Where the trouble happens is when we feel like our reality is wrong. When the reality that we have currently isn't right, when spending money is wrong, when earning money is wrong, when it shouldn't be this way, that's a very painful, it will cause a lot of suffering. It will cause a lot of turmoil in life, because arguing with reality is like really not a super effective use of time, energy, or whatever else. All right. So when we think about class, we want to think about what is available for people like me, right? We also want to think about how do things go for people like me. I find that I see a lot more struggle patterns for those who experienced more in the lower middle class or people who grew up in poverty, people who grew up working class, lower middle class, right? Where we'll see, I don't actually see as many struggle patterns for people who grew up super wealthy. Struggle patterns tend to be more with people who grew up lower middle class. Obstacles, so if you grew up lower middle class, you may see obstacles as like making ends meet. Debt may be an obstacle, where if you were somebody who grew up in a wealthier class, obstacles may be taxes or market conditions. You're going to see obstacles differently. They're going to play out differently for you in your mind. Expectations of your behavior, of what you can afford, of giving and receiving, and of work ethic are all very much intertwined into class systems. And so again, this isn't super clear cut. It's not like there's one set of ultimate beliefs for each class. There's not. But what I find is that people who grew up in these different classes tend to have different sets of beliefs, even though one or two may be swapped out. They may be different about one thing or another. And then you'll often have some emotions that are tied to this class. And often, I'll tell you, I see a lot of judgments or resentments towards people in other classes, which adds a whole extra layer, because now we're in the emotional realm, which adds a layer of stickiness, because now if people in that class are bad or wrong because they have different availabilities than what I have, then if I needed to move into that class, those resentments need to go away. It's both, right? I need to change my mind and I need to change my emotions. I'll tell you, I just did a big release with our client in Limitless Wealth this week around this exact topic. He was holding on to old resentments from high school about he had to work to get his car and other people's parents just bought them a car, and there was still some harboring resentments there. And what's funny is he's a very, very successful lawyer, very incredibly successful, and there's still some struggle patterns that he carries because of these class ceilings. We're working on taking them down. All right. So I just want to play a little game with you. So give me a heart or a comment, just let me know. Just hit the emoji buttons if you want to just do a little exercise with me. This isn't in the worksheets. This is just in a little extra thing. So this is an exercise in mental flexibility. Yes, Sarah. So what we want to do is I just want you to be able to see the exact same set of problems through different lenses. So let me know if you've ever seen 8 Mile with Eminem in it, right? If you haven't, we'll just imagine somebody else from like another fictional character who's having a tough go with money, survival mode, poverty mode, not enough, right? But I feel like we're not talking about Eminem, the human. We're not talking about Marshall Mathers. We're talking about the character from 8 Mile. So we're going to put that person's ideas up against Warren Buffett's ideas, who's a real person, right? So this is what I want you to imagine. Both men, both Rabbit from 8 Mile and Warren Buffett are driving down the road to get to work, and a tire blows out of their car and they pull over. They're safe, but I just want you to imagine, what does that mean to them? And I will give you my thoughts, but you can go ahead and put them in the comments. There's always a small delay, right? So I can imagine that Rabbit from 8 Mile is going to have a lot of fear around showing up late to work. There's probably going to be some drama around getting a new tire. He may, he may or may not have money saved, then I would guess with probably not. It's going to be a massive emergency type vibes, inconvenience type vibes, where I would also imagine, yeah, Claudia says one has their day and their budget ruined. Where I would imagine Warren Buffett would call somebody who would come get the car, and it would really be a small hiccup. The other is cool and collected and call the car to pick them up. And that's basically it. It's that there's limitations in certain, there's limitations that are different, right? And so you can start to practice mental flexibility. Well, what would somebody in this situation, this upbringing think about this? Well, what would somebody, who grew up super middle class think about this? Well, what would somebody who grew up super wealthy think about this? And you can start to practice mental flexibility, because when you're practicing mental flexibility, you're basically tricking your mind. You're tricking your mind into getting your thoughts out of your own invisible maze just into the wide open. And so sometimes, like, you could just ask yourself, well, what would somebody else do in this situation? Because sometimes our invisible mazes can be really confining for our thoughts, right? All right. So I want you to ask yourself another question. All right. So how would Rabbit from 8 Mile feel about spending $1,000 on a pool float? Yes, I said a pool float, because I feel like it's super unnecessary. You 100% do not need $1,000 pool float, no matter who you are, And how can you imagine Warren Buffett feeling about spending $1,000 on a pool float? Because again, we're talking the exact same set of the same thing applied to both, right? So I can imagine that Rabbit from 8 Mile would be thinking, I don't want $1,000 pool float. I'd rather have $1,000 for this and this and this and this. It will seem very silly. It will seem very frivolous to have the, it will seem like a bad idea. This will be screaming in your emotions as this is a bad idea, right? Where Warren Buffett may not be feeling that exact same way. He might just be like, it's a little extra for a pool float, but all right, or he may not think it's worth it at all. And either way, it doesn't. We're just practicing mental flexibility. All right. Now, the last question for this mental flexibility exercise, and if you wanted to comment, I would really appreciate it, is how would Rabbit from 8 Mile think about having to earn an extra $100,000 a year versus Warren Buffett thinking about making an extra $100,000 a year? That thought would probably be very different, right? Somebody says Warren Buffett wouldn't spend $1,000 on a pool float. He isn't frivolous. Yeah, I don't know. He's really, as far as billionaires go, he lives in a regular size, or like he lives in a regular neighborhood. He's not living, in a like couple $100,000 house, just like a regular dude. I think he drives himself to work. Yeah. So an extra 100,000 for Warren Buffett is like literally no big deal. Where for Rabbit from 8 Mile, it would be something that probably way different experience. Yes, Warren Buffett could earn that in a day or two, right? And so we start to see things. Oh, like somebody says, Rabbit would feel anxiety around it, trying to scrape together somehow. Odd jobs. Yep, Warren Buffett would scale and leverage to do it. Yes. So look at now, the way that money really works is that when you start to take on the belief structures that support wealth, you find solutions. Now, this isn't super quick work. It's not instantaneous. I have clients that work with me for some time doing this. I don't want to make it sound like I'm selling a magic pill for wealthiness. I'm not. But what I do find is if you can understand what makes you tick in your financial life, you have a lot more control to change what works or to change what doesn't work and to pick and choose what does work. And so class ceilings is it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where when you understand all the things that are going on inside you, you realize how powerful you are. You'll realize how much control you have over the situation and how many different perspectives and how many different versions of truth there are that are available to you in your life. And you just have to kind of go get them. All right. So here's the way that I see class ceilings playing out for clients in their real lives. Hold on. Before I get started, I'm gonna just answer this comment. So I've definitely struggled with making more than what was modeled for me. For years, I could never get past my mom's income, no matter what I tried. It's like our minds get an idea of what is and just keep creating that reality, no matter how hard we try to change it. How do we break this programming? Oh, dude, we're talking about it right now. But that is like the perfect example of what class ceilings looks like. So the way that I see it kind of showing up with people that I've worked with over time is they don't see what's possible. Like, so sometimes I'll be listening to somebody talk and I'm like, well, you already have this, you already have that. I'm like, have you considered option A? And they'll be like, no. I'm like, all right. And it's not because they're not smart, but it's because that idea was outside of their maze. They didn't see the potential of it, or that it didn't cross their mind. And that's basically one of the ways where our class ceilings keep us small. Sometimes they'll see an idea and it will feel wrong. It will feel gross. Now, this is more and more true if you have a ton of resentments toward other classes. So, for example, if I have a client right now who's got the biggest heart of gold ever. She's a social worker. She works with children. She's so generous with like her heart, like her vibes. She's super, super generous. And the idea of making more money at first felt wrong to her. It wasn't that she didn't see that it was possible. It was that the idea of it came with a whole lot of guilt, came with a whole lot of gross. Like she didn't want to be one of those people who she kind of has come to hate over time. So sometimes you can see what's possible, but the emotion around it will feel bad. It will feel gross. So that's one way that I see class ceilings, right? Thoughts are another way. So like debt is a trap. That's like, it's true in some cases, it's not true in other cases, So right. So like, we'll just talk about some limiting beliefs where we can start to see these in our thoughts. So if I grew up lower middle class, I may need something to be able to buy it and feel guilt if I buy something I don't need, right? Buying things that you need, I don't need it, right? Things like that. You'll hear in a language pattern, it's an indication of, it can be an indication of some limited thoughts around spending or earning or whatever else. I couldn't make more money because I don't want to work overtime. That could be an example of a thought that's indicating where your ceilings are. Your thoughts are going to give you a lot of clues as to where these ceilings are, because why I call these truths invisible, like the invisible rules, is because you don't necessarily see them. They're not like written down. It's not like you've constructed these over time, unless you've done a lot of personal development work, where this is something that's just normal to you, that like you find a truth, you get your fingerprints on it, you decide whether or not it stays. So most of the time you're going to use their thoughts that are in your conscious mind to figure out where the invisible truths are. Because to you, the invisible truths don't look like limitations. They just look normal. They're just normal. They're just the way it is. And you have evidence to back it. I promise you, you have evidence to back every single truth that you have in your invisible maze. Now, it doesn't mean that it's the only truth, and you can take these things down. And that's part of what we do in Money Mindset Bootcamp, is we start to see where the, we start to see where the limited truth is. But you're going to really catch this stuff inside your thoughts, because you can hear, like your thoughts run through your mind and you can hear them. I don't know if hear is the right word, but you communicate with your thoughts in a much different way than you can communicate with that subconscious layer of those truths. So you'll be thinking things like, that is a trap, or I need to need something to be able to buy it, working overtime, saving for rainy days, saving for an emergency. That's another limiting belief of class, right? So I'll tell you, wealthy people save for opportunities, not for emergencies. There's a difference. Emotions, the emotional patterning around survival mode. Poverty is survival mode, and the thing about it is, you can make a lot of money and live in emotional poverty. So, emotions, if you can imagine the emotional state of Rabbit from 8 Mile versus Warren Buffett, you're going to find a very different temperature of emotions, in that the different classes have different like emotional temperatures. Survival mode feels, to me, I would describe it as like icy cold scarcity. Like it never feels like there's enough. It feels like if you ever had to sleep with like a thin blanket or something. Where it's like, if you're pressed for time, it feels a lot more stressful. Even like, I'm like losing my train of thought a little bit. So there's very different emotional states. So yeah, if you guys wanted to help me out in the comments and see, what are the different emotions associated with poverty and with wealth, go ahead and write them down. It's going to be lack versus gratitude, fear versus security. You're going to see that there's different emotional temperatures to each of these things. It's funny because so much of the work that I do with my clients is training them to start to take on the emotional states, because making decisions from a state of gratitude will yield a very different outcome than making a decision from a state of lack or a state of not enough. They feel very different, and you'll find that you're able to really, I don't know, panic. Yes. Shame. All right. Amy says, wealthy people save for opportunities. Never thought of it that way. I just thought they saved for bigger emergencies. Yeah. And also, wealthy people probably have some funds set aside for like, emergencies, but really, like, that's such a small part of what they would do. That more often I see them saving for opportunities. I see them saving to upgrade their business, to leverage time, to build systems. Yeah. All right. So Claudia, look, we got panic, we got shame, we got poverty, fear, not good enough, shame, trapped, poverty versus freedom, wealth, right? Okay. So we can start to see that there's very different emotional temperatures. And I will tell you, one of the last things that keep people trapped within class ceilings is the fear that they're going to lose their people. Nothing pisses somebody off more than their community being like, must be nice. I'll tell you, that triggers people because it basically says that you're not part of our community anymore. You're one of those other people. And I will find that there's a lot of fear. So who had the example of making more money than their mom? Look at this comment up here. So a lot of times there will be an underlying fear around making more money than your parents, making more money, whatever, because it says, I'm not one of you anymore. I'm this other kind of person. Now, generally, your families don't kick you out for making more money. From my experience, most of the time, people's families are really happy for them as they grow and progress. But it can also be one of those things where all of a sudden you don't feel included, or you don't, I'll tell you, for my own self, for years, financially, I haven't needed to struggle in quite some time. But I held on to that struggle pattern for much longer because I wanted to be relatable. I was like, well, if I don't have any money struggles, how am I going to be relatable? And I was like, it's kind of weird because I've been doing this for a long time. I don't necessarily need to experience my own struggle to be able to help you with yours. In addition to having my own experience, I have experience having worked with, I've done thousands of meetings, probably more than 10,000 meetings on this exact subject. I don't need to personally bask in the bullshit to be able to help you with yours. But the idea that I wasn't going to have to struggle, it took me some time to really digest and really let that pattern go. Oh, this is so good. All right. I think that with poverty, there is a feeling of failure, or maybe that you've been cheated somehow. I think sometimes with wealth, people feel like they've gotten something for nothing and it wasn't worked for because it's always available. I think accountability is something that should be present in both situations. I'll tell you, the idea of cheated, scammed, like if you victim mentality as powerlessness, and that's much more common in poverty. And what's so interesting is like even things that like so for example, payday loans are considered predatory, like they're taking advantage of people. It's like they're screwing somebody, even though the person, whoever took out the payday loan, obviously there were fees that they paid, all the things to be able to have immediate access to money. It's just an interesting way to put it. It wasn't like a lifesaver loan. It's predatory, right? And so honestly, if my client came to me with a payday loan, that'd be like the first thing that we worked through. Payday loans are super bad financially, but it's just interesting that there's so much victim mentality in poverty. Yep. So I really love that comment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about certain behavior patterns that I see. So the closer to poverty you are, the more of the income that needs. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna just take this one comment before I get into behavior patterns. It's selfish to do things or take care of yourself when you don't have money. All right. So that may be a truth that's limiting, right? Because if you're selfish, then there's a lot of guilt associated with that, and you may be missing opportunities to invest in yourself in a way that would pay off financially. You may be missing opportunities. And also, that sounds like it might be some good girl conditioning. It might be, right? Women are conditioned to put themselves last. You take care of everybody else first. And that's one of the expectations that just comes with being a woman. It's not necessarily class related, but that's a thing. In fact, one of the indicators that they use in economics is lingerie, because Pricey lingerie generally only thrives when the economy is doing well because it's the last thing that gets bought. All right. So we're going to talk about some behavior patterns. And so this is where you're going to start to see some ways that sometimes our upbringing, our class ceilings will impact our behaviors, the way that it actually shows up for us now. So sometimes, so if you're closer to poverty, you'll find that most of the money goes to basic needs. So one of the ways that that shows up is if you have those patterns, you can spend all of your money or almost all of your money on basic needs all the way up the income scale. Like I'm telling you, you can make $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, and spend all of it on your house, your cars, your groceries, and it will be very different, but it does happen, and that is a state of stress. So when you start to be more like people with more wealthy, it's a much smaller fraction of the money that goes to basic expenses. The way that I see people working on saving, people who grew up more middle class or lower tend to save for emergencies. They tend to save for rainy day funds. And so basically what we're saying is something unfortunate needs to happen to me to use this money. Right? That's an interesting idea to have. My money is used for unfortunate events, right? That's the belief that's underneath that belief. And so I see that wealthy people are more using money for opportunities. They'll be looking at the real estate market, saving money to get into real estate, saving money for stocks, saving money for bonds. That may be retirement or something else. So earning. What's funny is I ask a lot of people like, all right, well, what's going on in your financial, how much money you make? People who feel more poor. Now, this is all the way up the income ladder. Again, this is not an indication of actually being poor. They will tell me how much they make per hour. People who are a little bit wealthier will say, well, like, do you mean personal income, business income, investment income? There's varieties. And there's that spectrum. So somebody who gets paid, who tells me by the hour, well, I can tell that they're thinking about money, and the one thing that they have to make money is their time and effort, right? It's different. So somebody who's, you'll see a little bit better off financially will tell you, most of the time too, people who are in sales will tell you by month. People who have salaries will tell you by year. And then people who are more wealthy will tell you by income stream. So it's just an interesting way to look at it. So you'll start to, part of what I listen for when I'm working with clients is their language around things. That's it. All right. So investments, I find that people in, the middle of the road and lower think about investments like retirement, and that's kind of the only thing that I'll hear about is just like retirement. Like I should be saving more for retirement, and when pensions stopped being so readily available, that mostly impacted the, the lower classes. So investments for more wealthy people, it's more like, living expenses, retirement, capital gains, education. There's a lot more ideas around how to have your assets paying for things. And so this is when you can start to stretch your mind into seeing it the way that it is right now for you in your current exact situation and other potential truths. What ends up happening is that invisible maze, it starts to crumble. You can start to make it go away. You can choose to move those walls. So this is a lot of the work that this next round of Money Mindset Bootcamp is going to be focused on, because this is where people get stuck. And I'll tell you, most of my clients are already doing some things. They're already making progress. A lot of my clients are making good money, but they still have these poverty patterns. And so you can make good money and have and still have these class ceilings that are really crushing you because they impact your feelings around things. They impact behaviors. I'll tell you, one of my clients would give her money away. She would make good money. She would give it away because she felt so much guilt around having it because she grew up super poor. And so the idea that she could have abundance, she didn't have the emotional range for it. We had to work through it to be able for her to have money. It was one of those things that she didn't have the tolerance for it, because having money is a tolerance. You have to practice it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Money Mindset Bootcamp now, because this ties into like the solutions around, well, what do we do about these things? So one of the things that needs to happen is, so first, your truths need to be examined. So actually, I'm going to just share my screen real quick. So in the worksheets that you guys got for this, let me see. All right, this should do it. So if you haven't already registered, one of the things that you're going to want to do is you can go, I know you're already watching the class, but you can go and you can register, and then you'll get the worksheets. So I want you to imagine making each one of these numbers for yourself. You know, if your annual income was $10,000, some of you are going to be like, I can't even imagine working for $10,000. It's such a little amount of money. I wouldn't even show up. It wouldn't even make sense for me. You know, 15,000. And you start to go through, and you'll find that most of us will have a number where the idea of earning that amount of money becomes massively uncomfortable, very upsetting for the body. So I want you to imagine that. And then you can start to find some of your beliefs. I'd love to make more money, but, and you're going to start to find the thoughts that are in your way, right? By doing this activity, you're going to start to see where your limitations are by filling these sheets out. And then the next page is, you can start to go back into your mind and think like, you know, can I identify the thoughts or beliefs that cause habits or actions? Once you pull it all up, being able to reflect. So those are your worksheets there. And I would encourage you to do them, because what you're going to get out of that is really starting to see how your emotions play, because checking in around the earnings of the money is going to really be like an emotional thing. And then as you start to fill out those sheets, you're going to start to see where those thoughts are. So identifying identifying where your belief structure is, what you're currently believing, what you understand, what you don't understand. This is going to be critical. And so in Money Mindset Bootcamp, you're going to get coursework. So there's a course that's online. It's Teachable. You have access to it forever. And so they're going to walk you through, and then there's the workbook pages. And the workbook pages are going to massively pull up the things that are in your subconscious around money. And this is what you're going to take to the Money Mindset Bootcamp live classes. So in Money Mindset Bootcamp, what we do is 4 live classes. Now, this is where you're going to get my eyes and my ears on your situation. You're going to do some of the work on your own. You're going to bring it to me, and we're going to work through it together. So this is where we start to expand the truths. We start to like really look at what truths you have, why we're there. Could we reframe that story? Could we tell it a different way? Can we release, we're going to work on releasing the emotions, because a lot of times these walls are stuck there. They're cemented into the ground with emotions, because the thing about truths is they're true to you. You certainly experience this stuff, and your emotions play a really big role. So that's part of what we do, is we can use our time together to find those invisible walls and to take them down and rebuild them where we would prefer them. That is where that's what happens in the coaching of this. So again, you're in Money Mindset Bootcamp, you get the course, which is going to explain to you all the ways your mind works. You're going to learn the basics. You're going to get the workbooks. You're going to pull it all up. Renata, I'm going to talk to you a second. You're going to pull it all up, and then you're going to come see me. And so expanding truth, if you change where those invisible walls are, dude, your life changes, and it happens relatively quickly. And your mind is plastic. Like, if you can still learn something new, your mind is still plastic. Like, You can decide, and it's just a reframe technique. And I'm very good at it. And we move through these things very, very, very quickly. And what we'll find is that the energy will shift. So I'll give you a quick example. So I had a client in Limitless Wealth a couple of weeks ago who we found there was a lot of resentment around, I just was telling you guys this, around he had to work super hard in high school to have a car. And he knew people who just got a car, and there was a lot of lingering resentment around that. Well, what we did was we retold that story. We reframed that story. So we saw what he did get out of the situation. He got he achieved having his own vehicle as a teenager. He has a beautiful work ethic. There's a groundedness about him. He doesn't take things for granted. He's very wise with he's a great steward of money. He's generous in ways that are meaningful. And all of this kind of came from some of that story. And that those gifts that weren't the car, those internal gifts that he got out of that exact same situation, have served him well over his lifetime. And so when he started to see that, what we found was that resentment kind of went away, and the space for more wealth is going to be clear because it's not going to be clouded and tangled up with these old judgments. Because if you hate people like that who make a lot of money and you're trying to make a lot of money, it's incongruent. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen. So that's some of the big work that we do in Money Mindset Bootcamp. And I also want to say Money Mindset Bootcamp, one of the other major benefits is that you get me listening, but also these are done in small group meetings. So you'll get to listen to other people. They're going to share their stories. You're going to hear it's just such a wonderful, beautiful experience because you're hearing where they are, what's going on for them. You're seeing their problems and you're seeing the reframe happen because we're all on different paths. We're all at different levels with our money. We all have different missions and purposes in this world. And so money's not as clear cut as it seems it would be. So you'll find that a belief that could work wonderfully for you isn't necessarily applicable to everybody else in the meeting. And so you're going to have a depth of understanding from it being in a small group that you're going to find solidifies change in you so much faster. So in Money Mindset Bootcamp, I guess I'll tell you again. So you'll get the course. So it's Teachable. It's 5 units. And it goes through some really I have to sneeze. Give me a second. No, maybe I don't. Yeah. The pressure of the sneeze went away. All right. So there's a lot of activities. There's one to draw up all your beliefs. It's called Decode Your Money Mindset. There's one on retraining the crazy, the voice that's inside your mind, becoming the gentle observer. There's, thank you, Sonia. There's work on gratitude and visualization. The workbooks are going to pull up so much crap. And so, I will tell you that clients have told me they've printed out that workbook a dozen times in their lives, because as you grow and you change, you come back to the exact same activity and it hits different. So you'll have the course forever. You'll get the workbook. You're going to want to do that work. We're doing the 4 live group coaching sessions. We're going to expand the truths. We're going to retell the old stories. We're going to reframe. We're going to make friends. You're going to have a depth of understanding that comes from watching all of this healing occur. You're going to get to learn vicariously through other people's stories. They're going to get to learn vicariously through your story, and it is fantastic. And we do so the way that the live coaching works is we have 4 group call sessions. They start next Thursday. They go 4 weeks in a row. Let's see, they go from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern time. They're recorded. If you can't come live, they're recorded. You can get the calls. If you want to join, but you can't come live, you can send me an email. Let me know your question or your problem. And then I'll talk to you even though you won't be there. So that way, when you watch the replays, it can be there for you. I'll tell you, clients tell me that they'll listen to the replay 100 times or something and let it really all sink in. There's a lot of density of information. And so for some people that fits really great. And if you sign up today, there's a bonus. We're doing a happy hour next Tuesday night. So was it Tuesday? Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Where we're just going to get to know each other. You can bring a snack, get snuggled up, bring a glass of wine if that feels good for you, or your favorite seltzer beverage. And we're going to just hang out. We're going to tell each other like a little bit about our lives. And so that way, when the work starts, we can really just get into it. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't sound silly. You probably love the way it sounds, but it's really a beautiful time. So we get to know each other. And then that way, when we get into the work, we're all like friends already. So it's beautiful. So the price on Money Mindset Bootcamp is $497 if you paid in full. If you prefer a payment plan, you could do 2 payments of $300 each. Lynn Ward said take Money Mindset, and I'm guessing that there was more to come. Yeah, Lynn was in Money Mindset. Take Money Mindset, she says again. I'm telling you, this stuff is good, and I've just been doing it a few times, so I've had a couple people even take it twice. And if that's interesting to you, the course would be the same. Like, it's not a new course, but you get to bring your issues to me to be coached in that small group setting where you are. You know what I mean? So if you need to freshen up, even if, like, I've had some people do Cash Confident finish, do Money Mindset Bootcamp. They just want to a freshen up. They just want to, they just want a little reframe. They want some one-on-one time. They want some coaching. I'll look at, there we go. Yeah, my keyboard hates me today. Take Money Mindset. It's worth it. Yeah, it's a great, and for the price that you get to get so much FaceTime, one-on-one time, the deal is tremendous. So we already have some people registered that asked for the links way far in advance. So we're gonna have a pretty good sized group, which is always nice because then you learn more. All right, so I'll tell you one more time all the stuff that you get. If you have any questions about Money Mindset Bootcamp, go ahead and put them in, and I will go through it one more time, and then we'll start to get into our wrap up. So in Money Mindset Bootcamp, you get a course in Teachable. So it's 5 modules, and it goes through basically how your money mindset is formed and what you need to do to start to be able to change it. Then it also explains all the workbook pages. And so the workbook pages are designed to drag up all of your belief structures. And so when you do the work in your belief in those belief structures, when you start to figure that out, then you can come see me in the live group sessions. And that's really where the magic happens. And so again, that workbook you get to keep forever. You'll print it out. It doesn't come in the mail or anything. You'll have access to that forever. So you can come back to it again once you're done and growing and expanding. The 4 live classes, you're going to get my experience, my expertise, my super quick work on reframing stories. Honestly, you're going to get so much out of those classes. We're going to do the work on the calls. So that's where the reframing happens. We're going to just do it live. You're going to shift your energy. You're going to feel that transformation from our time together. Plus, you're going to get the benefit of learning from everybody else. And I get feedback people are putting ends to patterns that have plagued their family for generations type stuff, because you just shift out of it. What was your normal now isn't your normal anymore. We just decide and we make it all happen. And I have all the techniques and stuff around there. So you'll process those emotions so that way you don't keep getting tangled up in it. I'll tell you, one of the biggest mistakes people make with their money is they just go at it from a practical approach. They miss the realm of truth. They miss the realm of thoughts. They miss the realm of emotions. They get right into action. And what ends up happening is they can become incongruent with themselves. So if you grew up poor and now you're trying to read books like you're rich, but you haven't done any of the internal work, it's a very hard to go. It's a very, very difficult road to try to make anything happen just with actions. You have to really get yourself aligned. So when your invisible walls, your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions are all aligned towards your desires, towards your goals, toward what it is that you want, you find that it's way easier. So, all right. So the team put the link into the chat there with you. So again, Money Mindset Bootcamp starts next week. The price is $497 if you pay it in full. If you choose a payment plan, it's 2 payments of $300. All the calls are recorded, so you'll get replays of the calls. So if you want to listen to them again, perfect. If you can't come live, I understand. That's fine. You can even send me an email with any questions or concerns, that you have for you, and I'll coach you. And so really the value is so much bigger. Like if you have a belief that's stopping you from just getting a raise, we can increase, I've had clients increase their earnings by a crap ton, pay off their debt, increase their savings, stop fighting with their spouse. Like the benefits are amazing when you start to sort this stuff out. All right. So we're about an hour in. I don't see any questions. So we will just go ahead and wrap up. Oh, thank you for this. Yeah, thank you. I love teaching you guys. I'm so happy that you come and you hang out with me. Oh, Renata, where was it? Where is it? Oh, Renata says, I did the exercise, and for me, fear of failure is one of my invisible limitations. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You have to figure out what the failure means about you. What does it mean about you? Does it mean, because that's generally what scares people about failure. It's not just that it's not just the failure, but it means, sometimes it means I'm bad at work, I'm bad at motherhood, I'm bad at marriage, I'm bad at this, I'm bad at whatever. So you want to look at the fear. And then sometimes I'll tell you what I do when I get really nervous about something, when I feel really fearful around something, is I'll just play with it. Like, could I handle it? Could I handle the failure? If it all went to crap, what would I do? And if I could handle it, then I'll go for it. Right. So like in my business, I've played games of, I was scared to hire people because I was like, well, what if it doesn't work? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, all right, well, if it doesn't work, I would have to lay people off, and that would suck a lot. All right. Could I handle it? Yep. All right, let's do it. So that's one of the ways that I'll play with fear if it's around growth or something else. And I don't know what you were afraid of, so that may not be applicable. Thank you, Claudia, for saying that. All right. And then Kathy says, Brie is awesome to work with. I highly recommend it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sonia says, oh, that's a limiting belief. I won't be as smart as I think I am, and I'll be exposed as a fraud. Yeah, dude, imposter syndrome, that is a common problem. And here's the deal. Listen, I want to be super clear about this. Confidence is an internal game. It's got nothing to do with money. So the self-doubt doesn't go away when you make more money. Imposter syndrome, there are some problems that have nothing to do really with money, other than being able to afford help to move through them. There are some things that play a role in your financial setting. Confidence, you're going to do better financially when you have more confidence. But if you make more money, you're not going to necessarily be more confident. So understanding what the internal game is, when you figure out you got to figure out what's internal and what's external, and start with the internal things. I hope that makes sense for you. All right. So I hope that I see you on Money Mindset Bootcamp We got people recommending it. I'm telling you, it's a solidly good program, and the price for what you get is fantastic. I mean, when I meet with clients one-on-one, I mean, we're well up over $2,000 for a one-on-one meeting. And so you get quite a bit of face time in these small group programs that if you are buying one-on-one time, it becomes a little bit more pricey. And so you get the benefit of the group, you get the benefit of me personally coaching you, you get my experience. You know, we get to work very fast because I'm already very well practiced at this. I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of meetings on these exact topics for the last 8 years of my life, and I move very quickly. And so you'll get very fast results. That comes from there. So it's really, really a wonderful, I feel like everybody in the whole wide world should do it. All right. So that's that. All right. So I love you and I appreciate you. And thank you for hanging out with me. And hopefully I will see you in Money Mindset Bootcamp. And if you have any questions, just ask in the comments if you're watching the replay, and we will go from there. Bye.